What's going on, YouTube? This video is going to focus on a pretty good overview of the Spider-Man 2 game. I'm going to touch on the major factors of the game and then kind of go into a little bit of each to obviously give my opinion, but then give my more unbiased, just how the game is opinion as well, to see what I think versus what everyone else thinks. This game's been getting a lot of love and hate for different aspects of it, but I think overall it had a lot of ups. So let's get right into it. Combat. Combos are fun and dynamic, and they seem to have enough variation to them in the fight that I don't feel like because I'm hitting punch over and over, it's the actual same consistent follow through of the punch. So they did that in the previous game, obviously, but it just felt fluid and looked really good in this game still. The team combos were one of the coolest aspects that I like too, because they're smooth, they happen automatically, I don't have to like set it up. And I like it because it makes it feel unpredictable. Like I'll be in the middle of fighting, and then if both of us are there, I'll be ready to finish somebody off and he comes in and does it. Super helpful and looks really good. I do wish that you could bank some of the instant KO or heals that you get by doing the combos or dodging a lot. You can only use it for the one use. You can hold on to that one use if you'd like, but I wish you could like bank maybe 3 of them so that you could use a heal mid-fight or take out 2 different enemies at once by just using 2 that you'd banked, or any more than one. One is good enough to make it feel good, but more would have just made it feel better when you're in the bigger fights near the end of the game. This one did feel lighter on the difficulty. I get there are literally difficulties in the game. I played through the normal one and then the most difficult one, but it felt less stressful in the fights, I guess I'd say. I did obviously die more than a few times, but fighting multiple enemies at once seemed easy if I just stopped trying to punch, and I took a second to stand there, dodge the sequences that were coming, and just fight back to each person that dodged me. I could clear out an entire group with really not moving too much or doing too much. I love the parry aspect of it. Has to land on every hit from a combo from the larger people that you fight. It isn't just parry the first hit, now you can tear them up, because that does make them more difficult, because you can parry the first 2, and if you mess up that last one, it's still gonna sometimes ruin the chance for you to then make them pay for having been parried that last time. The primary difficulty of the combat in the game really only comes up near the end of the game where you're doing the symbiote fights, because all the symbiotes are obviously stronger than normal enemies, but they take way more damage, so their health is a lot higher, so the fights last longer. You have a higher chance of something happening or you screwing up. It's still somewhat as simple as you can just take a beat, stand there and dodge, and just hit back to who you're dodging as you're dodging. So that aspect still remains, but there's just so many and so many different types of abilities they can do that sometimes dodging isn't even as simple, because it's 3 attacks at once or 2 attacks at once. So it's not that movie comic book-esque 10 people will surround you and they only hit you 1 at a time kind of thing. Gadgets, skills, and abilities. The gadgets are very useful for the peon regular fighters, which is kind of, I feel like, what they were made for. But in the boss fights, and by boss fights I mean like the specific level bosses or bosses you come into throughout the story, as well as the more difficult to fight larger enemies that come up in the groups, everything on some level works. The knock up one that you have, that one doesn't work so much on smaller crowds, because it knocks them all up, but you can generally only go to one person without having to continuously web through. But for like the bigger guys that you can't block against, you have to dodge their hits, I use that on that. Easy to take out in the air each time. I also like the fact that you can use them quick mid combo no matter who you're fighting. You can jump from one person, jump to the next person, jump to the next person, and in between all that you can throw out 2 or 3 different gadgets if you need to keep the combo chain going. Also, like, there's both offensive and defensive gadgets that work in the combo chains that you'll be doing throughout anybody in the group. So like the one that pulls everyone together, that's not really an offensive one, that's more of a defensive one. But if you combine that with an ability, you can wipe out an entire group of people in one shot. I like how effective the skills are that are damaging because they increase your DPS and cut the time in half most of the time for the fights you need to have when you use them correctly, especially if you group people together, wipe them in one shot. It's significantly, it feels great when you do it, and it looks great when you do it. The larger groups of people that you maybe can't all wipe at once, it's great to have the mixing of skills and gadgets, like I said earlier, because it helps everything feel fresh again. In these types of games where it's like Assassin's Creed, where you really can only do punch, 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 maybe a heavy punch in some of these games to mix in with the combo, it makes it feel like you're not just tapping the one button over and over again. And the gadgets and the skills and the abilities, all those tie into every combat environment I am in this game. Even the small little one person I may have to fight with a flamethrower standing on a car, even then it feels dynamic still while fighting. I do love how there are more abilities than there are slots to use. That way you have options of how you want to play it, not they give you 4 abilities in the game. You have 4 slots in the game, so use the abilities they give you. They give you more than that, so you can choose how you want to use those. For all those, for the gadgets and skills, obviously, and abilities, it's kind of how you want to fight with both Miles Morales and Peter Parker. They both have their own dynamic fighting styles, obviously, because of their ability differences, but I like how no matter which one you have, you can still put your own little touch on how you're going to fight and use them, because certain abilities I didn't find as useful as others, or maybe I found them useful to fight bosses, but not like the normal peon guys you fight on the street. There's like 4 or 5 of them. So it's just the adaptability you can have in combat because of the skills that you have and that you can swap between them. The same for the gadgets as well. For me, Miles Morales definitely takes the cake in terms of combat abilities. I feel like his abilities were way more effective in clearing out an entire group of people. Peter Parker has some more targeted abilities. They both have a little of each, but personally, from how I fight and how I was fighting and playing in the game, Miles Morales definitely had more. Just his ability styles were better to me. Of course, of all the fighting segments in the game as you progress through, the Venom suit fighting is absolutely the best. The Venom himself fighting is the best, but that only happens for a little bit. So the Venom suit fighting, oh, it's so amazing, and the rage mode you can go is so amazing. Same thing for the anti-Venom suit. It's amazing. I love how they made it literally and figuratively fluid while you're fighting with the suit. It's just, it came out much better than I thought. I didn't think it'd feel clunky or anything, but it felt way more natural than I thought it would, considering this is the first time they've done it right in a game. And again, mentioning that rage meter burn ability, it's so for both Miles Morales and Peter Parker, it's just phenomenal. I do like it more with Peter Parker because I get to fight more. With Miles Morales, it's kind of like an instant wipe of the field, which of course is useful, but I feel like I'm not really engaging with that when that happens. It's more like I'm mad and raging, so I'm gonna go ahead and pop this and drop everybody. For Peter, it's more like I get to take it out on them one by one, because you basically 2 or maybe 3 shot everybody with a combo, and on the 3rd hit they're pretty much getting tossed through a window or smashed on the ground or snapped in half or whatever he's doing. It's just amazing. Map navigation. So the swinging is amazing as expected, but it feels somehow even still more improved from the previous game, with especially they pointed out the new options they have for the swinging you can do. If you go into settings, it'll show you the different types of like unassisted or assisted swinging you can do. Part of the Spider-Man game experience is you just jump right into it. You're just like immediately swinging in the game, going through the city, looking at everything, and it's one of the best feelings. I don't know if anybody remembers the old Superman Returns game, but I think it's for the original Xbox and maybe I think it's PS2 as well. That game was phenomenal because you could just blast off the ground and start flying around and stuff. It was amazing. It was, but like, I don't know why they don't remake that, but this is as good as you're gonna get of a quote unquote superhero game, with the full experience of the superhero that you're playing the game for. So the navigation in all the Spider-Man games have been great, as we've seen throughout the generations, but this one is just about as good as it gets right now. The best addition to the game mechanics in terms of the navigation is the wingsuit by far. Wingsuit is such a small thing to add with such a big outcome change in the game. One of the hardest achievements I had to get, or trophies, I'm so used to Xbox, I had to get for the game was you have to go basically from one end of the map to the other without ever touching the ground, purely with the wingsuit. So you got to catch a lot of those air tides they have and just ride those things out. But it is without a doubt one of the coolest and most fun additions to this game compared to any of the other Spider-Man games thus far. And like I said, the wingsuit streams that you find, I'm sure they're mapped or navigated a certain way, but I never memorized them or anything, obviously. So it was just exciting when I'm swinging and I can see one. So I pop right into the suit and start just gliding through the whole place. It's so easy to get around. It does take some of it out. I mean, even games with the best movements, still, if something's on the opposite side of the map, you don't want to feel too, I don't want to say fatigued, but bored while just trying to get from point A to point B. And that's definitely a great touch to pull you in still in the movement. Also, they have the radio ambiance stuff that comes on while you're swinging. So it'll be anybody. They have different radio stations that come up and talk about stuff or review different things. So it's never just you swinging in silence, which I really do like. Even sometimes the character will ad-lib certain things. The classic Spider-Man swing tricks and the snaps that you can do to like grab onto something really quickly and fling off, those are still awesome to see. The auto launch feature is awesome. That's not really what it's called, but that's what I'm gonna call it. But it's the one where you web two different objects and then pull back and launch yourself from it. That is awesome because not only does it get you right back engaged, it gets you speed for the wingsuit, and you can just go from there based on how you're trying to navigate the map. It's just also another really cool feature that I liked. The swinging skills that you can get also made it feel new and fun. I know some of them were in the old game, but some of the ones where you can like, if you hit a vertical standing pole, you can swing around it. Or if you hit a horizontal standing pole, you can swing around that as well and just do loops to relaunch and everything. Again, I feel like they just tried to make sure that because he's Spider-Man, for God's sakes, and you're going to be swinging majority of this map, they wanted to make it as fresh feeling and exciting as possible, not just so you could jump right into a fight, but also just looking around the city and swinging around and everything. You know, there's tons of videos that come out of these Spider-Man games of people doing small edits with like music and stuff when they're falling from a tall building and they do like 18 flips and solve a Rubik's Cube and all that. So just all that stuff just shows how that's not even people showing clips of them doing anything in the game that the game was specifically made for story-wise or mission-wise. That's literally just them falling and grabbing, and those get millions of views because they look visually amazing and they feel amazing when you're playing them. And you don't really get that experience in a lot of games in terms of navigation. It's usually walk, you know, half a mile this way and then you'll be there, and that's generally it. I did a review of Starfield recently, and that was one of my gripes there. It's just a lot of walking with no real excitement in the movement unless you're in a major city, and then maybe you'll hear some funny things from NPCs or get missions. But in Spider-Man, I get two different games. I'm not trying to compare them. I'm just saying in terms of navigation of the map in an RPG, it's definitely 10 out of 10 for this game. Maps and missions. The map is bigger than the last game, and with the new ways to get around the map, the wingsuit that I was referring to earlier, it makes it just as easy to explore and enjoy. So it doesn't feel like they just expanded it and they're like, that's it. I mean, they expanded it and it gives you more opportunity to explore the map, and with the different ways to explore it now, it just feels, I don't know, fresh and new. The map also has plenty of missions, like the picture ones. I kind of like those because they pop up. I mean, it always has the world activities you can do, but they show you the best places to stop at and get the best shots. I know some people are really into getting the one shot of Spider-Man at the best angles or what's going on in the town or some crazy stuff like that, like I mentioned earlier with the videos on TikTok and stuff that blew up of people just falling and playing music and stuff. It's the same kind of concept. I love how the fast travel is just an instant drop to where you choose on the map. You click it and it just drops you right in there swinging or doing something automatically. It's not a long loading screen and wait for all this. They made it very fluid. In terms of I don't want to say graphics, but like aesthetically pleasing, the colors and the feeling of the environment, how the NPCs move and how everything goes around. By goes around, I mean like the helicopters or the birds, just everything that's a dynamically moving asset in the game. They all look amazing. Obviously, you're not going to get people's life stories on the streets and stuff. They didn't fully program these people with lives, but it is nice to see that they have added little things here and there. And my next video is going to be the little things that it's may not have noticed that were there, but they're there, especially the Easter eggs that are in the game that a lot of people have already found, but I'll just be going over those essentially because they made sure everything looked as good as it could possibly be while still making the NPCs and the environment still feel like you're not just in a game. For the main missions of the game, there are generally 4. I say generally because I'm not going to include the main storyline itself, but there's the FNSM app missions where you help citizens around the map that all send in like complaints or alerts that stuff's going on. The flame missions with Peter Parker, that's the flame cult missions you go through at the end of that. I'm not going to spoil anything, but you get something specific. The Brooklyn Visions mission, that's Miles because it's for his school. There's not that many of those, but they're pretty interesting and fun, kind of puzzle solving. The cultural museum missions, again, that's Miles and not many of those to do, where you just recover the stolen goods from the museum. And then the more, I guess, pop-up things are the world activities. There's like 10 of those. There's the photo ops, which there's 23 different photo op spots. The spider bots, there's 41 of those. Marco's memories, there's 14 of those. The prowler stashes, there's 8 of those. The EMF experiments, there's 9. The mysteriums, there's 10. The hunter blinds and the hunter bases combined, there's about 15 of those. The unidentified targets, there's 8. And then the symbiote nests, there's 10. The only one of those that are specific are the Prowler stashes are specific to Miles because Prowler is related to him. The EMF experiments are specific to Peter because that's what he was working on. And then the Mysteriums are specific to Miles because he's the one you start the missions with. All the rest are both Peter and Miles you'll find around the map to do. Story and main missions. Overall, the story was great. Had more than enough interaction within the cutscenes, and the story always felt like, as a player, I was involved, not just like watching a movie go through. There were a lot of times where you're actually interacting with the story as it's continuing through. Even if you're not able to play, it'd be like press this button or do stuff like that. So it's making sure you're engaged while there's too much talking going on. I felt connected with certain characters, and the story slowly makes you start to feel more connected with some characters that you may have just seen as side characters up until the point where they start to make you feel more engaged with them. A lot of the characters that come in to the story, you may not even interact with in the actual game itself. You're only seeing them through cutscenes, but even still, you're getting more connected with them through that, so you kind of care a little more. With Kraven the Hunter being the primary villain of the game, you're able to see how true evil compares to the comic city villains as they're being hunted by true evil, Kraven the Hunter. To compare, it's kind of like a street thug versus the Joker. You know, a street thug may rob you and run away and thinks he's bad and evil, but the Joker will bomb a hospital. Like, it's the difference in evil. And then when the Joker's hunting the person on the street mugging people, that's where this kind of feeling comes in between the comparison. This story definitely had some emotional and over comic-y action scenes that normally are in, Marvel movies and stuff like that. And I'm not gonna lie, in this game, it kind of made me connect a little bit more, so because it was so quick as they happened. It wasn't a lot of sitting around and talking and then something crazy would happen. It would be the opposite. Something crazy would happen, and in reaction they would talk about it. So I'm already invested. I'm already like headfirst in for the ride of the situation that's going on, even if it's following the villain's arcs to show like where the player and characters could apply more empathy in certain situations and understand backgrounds of people. It just felt like a story being told and not a video game main story plot. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, the Venom play was absolutely amazing, 10 out of 10. Obviously, I wished for more, but I got in context with the game and how the flow of the game was going that if you had that too much, then you're not really playing the characters as the game had done up until that point. It kind of would have been a major shift for you to just play as him for any longer than you did. I thought he could have done a little bit more in terms of combos, but I guess it's realistic. Again, it's Venom. Venom's not there to do a 6-piece combo. He's there to kill you in 2 hits. And they did Venom very correctly in this because he was doing 1 hits on most people. You get the full power and ruthlessness of Venom in combat and the minds of the user, meaning he's not like the Hulk going and smashing everything. He's an intelligent symbiotic thing. So it was a killing machine with methodical fighting styles in some instances. And by methodical, I mean more than, again, just smashing. Mary Jane's character this game felt more of a main character than a side character. Her missions felt like not normal in terms of difficulty, and you could kind of shoot through them with a little bit of more, I guess, risk than if you're Spider-Man, because a lot more happens when you're either the Spider-Man versus when you're Mary Jane. I feel like it waited a little too long to make her as dynamic as she was in the story in terms of how her missions went. It kind of just threw you in the first one, and then you don't touch her again until way at the end, and you throw in again. I know a large complaint about the last game was her and how that played out, and in this game, you know, I feel like that you can do a little bit more and you're in more action. You're not using her to walk around a house and look at pictures and stuff. You're only her when there's combat in terms of her level of combat and enemies that you have to actually think about how you're going to engage. So it felt like a sidekick to them more than just a side character in the game. Miles was amazing. The full arc of his family ties felt like deeply rooted in the missions. It felt like the story somehow perfectly went for Miles and Peter at the same time. It didn't just say this is a Miles Morales game or this is a Peter Parker game. It definitely felt like a dual Spider-Man game that they both had the same investment into the story. Because for Miles, it was definitely family and, you know, finding I don't want to say catharsis, but finding a way to move past what happened with his father and everything in the previous one, and it made it more realistic. It wasn't like we all hug and kiss at the end of the game kind of thing. It was a real, if you know, a teenager were to have powers and all this stuff to happen to them, the resentment level, the way, you know, he plays through, it's not just some superhero fantasy thing. It felt really real. And for Peter, it was the same way. Peter had some family issues that they kind of tried to help show that he's dealing with internally and get a resolution of that. But for him, it was more of a, I don't want to say moral fighting. It's Venom. Everyone knows how the Venom symbiote affects him from all the movies and TV shows and games that have been out and comics. But it's that. We got to see that in person, see how it was affecting his team and his family and stuff like that. So it was cool to play through that. And then when you get to post him having Venom and now Venom's on somebody else and you have to actually fight him as him, you just get the full view of everything and from his point of view, because you play as him for a majority of that, and then some of it you play as Miles, a third party viewing it. So I like how they gave you the different points of view of it. Venom, while at the end of the game, I don't want to say end of the game, he's at probably the 75% to end game part of the game in terms of you truly getting Venom and not just a symbiote on you. He was definitely the catalyst used to get the characters to their limits, to get them all pushed to as far as they can go, even if they didn't have the symbiote, but it still pushed them when they're like fighting them or moving around with them and stuff like that. So it was just really interesting to see that. And like I said earlier, the internal conflicts get more external with him whenever you have the symbiote on you. It also gave us a final villain arc that showed post Kraven the Hunter, there was still like a bigger, badder person to fight, and the difficulty there was as good as it should have been. They played that definitely well. They did have a few things that were different in this game, like for instance, in one of the scenes he walks through fire. Symbiotes are weak against 3 things, and fire is one of them. So I was a little taken back by that, but again, it's a video game. It doesn't have to be comic book crucial, and it's its own universe in this game. So I like how they kind of just introduced that as not so much of a weakness. They kept the electricity and they kept the sound, but they didn't, or not sound, like, well, it is sound, but it's more of the frequency and vibration, but still, the fire did go away for that. And lastly, the dual character missions, they definitely felt really good. They felt like you could have been playing either and you would have gotten the same experience, but playing one or the other, somehow it still made you feel more connected depending on what they were going through in the mission or what they're talking about or what the side voices going on, I mean like the phone calls they'll pick up and talk about or stuff like that. It just really felt like the dual character missions were dual character. It wasn't just you and he'll be there in the background. It always felt like if there was one Spider-Man, another Spider-Man, they're always helping each other. They're fighting together, they're comboing together, they're talking together, and then they split up for you to have that experience as well. Overall, I'm definitely going to give this game a 10 out of 10. I was very certain on Zelda Tears of the Kingdom coming out. Really made me feel like that was game of the year for certain, for a lot of aspects. If you're not a Zelda fan or a Switch user or anything like that, either way, the game was amazing. I'm not a Zelda fan. I mean, I'm not saying I'm against Zelda. It's just not my favorite game to play. I still got it. It was still amazing. I still played the heck out of it. It was really dynamic, had a lot going on for it. But then Baldur's Gate came out, and I am into D&D, IDM, and stuff like that, so that was just phenomenal. Diablo came out, which was phenomenal, but it definitely got overshadowed by Baldur's Gate coming out, and then this dropped, and then Alan Wake just came out, and while I've been making this video and playing the game, Alan Wake 2 came out, and that game's phenomenal. There's so many good games that came out this year that I can definitely see what games are good, what games are great, and what games are just trash, and this is definitely a great game. This is one of the contenders for Game of the Year. Obviously, everyone has preferences, but the way the games are rated specifically, I definitely can see this one being absolutely in one of the front runners for Game of the Year. So 10 out of 10, definitely I would recommend playing. It's the only PlayStation game that I've platinumed so far. I'm working through God of War right now still, so that'll be something I go through a little bit. And I know it's older, but I don't play PlayStation much, so I only get PlayStation exclusives for my PlayStation. Otherwise, I play it on Xbox, unless it's PC, and then I play it on PC. But yeah, so amazing game. Would recommend everybody play. 10 out of 10. I am gonna keep doing videos like this. The content seems to get at least commenters in there. I'm reading all the comments. Some of them are hilarious. Surprisingly, not as many trolls as I thought there would be, so that's at least nice. It's just everyone with their opinions. If you disagree, tell me. If you agree, definitely tell me. I want to hear all sides of it. Like I said, I don't play Spider-Man games that much. I only played the last one and this one, really. And by the last one, I mean one. I have the Miles Morales. I played it some, like literally the first hour, and then I just never got back to it. So it's not that I'm not into the games. It's just that I'm into other games more, and those games take my time up, especially when I'm trying to do review videos and stuff like that. Like, the objective isn't for me to take a game everyone knows is going to be perfect and play that game. That way I can say, guess what, in the review, it's perfect. I like playing all different kinds of games, but I also don't want to do that with games that may be crap, because I don't want to say, yeah, everyone says this game's crap, I played it, it is crap. That's not even a review worth watching. So, like, comment, subscribe, definitely throw those comments in there. Dislike if you like. Any reaction is good to me. It lets me know what I need to maybe look at different points of views or how I'm doing videos moving forward. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Catch you on the next video. Peace.